Hey, welcome to Graffinity again. Today we will break down this render that you can see right here. More specifically, we will focus on the lighter itself, which is the main element of the scene. But before we start, I just want to briefly explain something for you to understand. This project will be divided into two videos. This one is dedicated directly to the modeling of the lighter itself, and the second one is focused, or will be focused, on building the materials, surroundings, and the environmental storytelling. So if you follow every step, by the end of this course you should end up with this 3D model right here. So that's for the introduction, let's start working. So the step 1 is importing a reference. Once you open Blender, delete everything from the default scene. We will add a reference image to the Blender's 3D viewport space, which we will use for matching the right proportions. So rotate and align the reference so it is projected from one of the axes. Step 2 is modeling the body. So first add a cube and try to match the dimensions of the lighter. Go to edit mode and play with the faces. You can enable X-ray mode for better precision and accuracy. Since the body of the lighter has two parts, we will duplicate the cube and model the opening part. Now to replicate the smooth edge roundness around the corners, we will use subdivision workflow. This modeling method is very often used in hard surface modeling or any other art sectors like abstract architecture visualization or concept design. So now we will go to the modifier settings and add subdivision surface with subdivision level of 3. We will also apply the modifier on the top part as well. Now the subdivision surface modifier has completely transformed our 3D object because we need to add more geometry to make the subdivision denser on the edges. To do so, go to the edit mode and start adding bevels or loop cuts and move them closer to the edge on every side. This will take care of the smooth surface on the corners but also keep their proportions. Now we need to connect these two parts together, because there is an opening mechanism that holds the whole body. A way to do this is add a cylinder, scale it down, rotate it, and add an array modifier with a number of 2. Then add bevel modifier with 3 segments for more visibility, separation and smoothness. Now we want to connect this geometry to both parts of the lighter body. So apply the array modifier and separate the middle cylinder from the side ones. You can do this by pressing P on your keyboard and separate by selection. So now we have these two objects, but how can we join them together? To join them into one object, I'm going to use a Boolean modifier with union operation. This will allow me to merge these two objects into one. Now, if you select the top part and relocate the origin to the cylinders, now you can rotate the opening part correctly. But now we have a problem because the inside is solid, and we want the inside to be empty space. So delete the side so we can see the interior. To extrude the walls, use solidify modifier and check even thickness. If there is a still problem with the uneven thickness, apply the scale with Ctrl A. And do this whole process for the bottom part as well. Then select the top edges, duplicate them and separate them into a new object. We will end up with the same subdivision issue as before, but again we will fix this with additional geometry. So we will add some loop cuts until the proportions are matching the inside of the model. Now we will move the whole object slightly down, insert the faces and extrude them up on the Z-axis. Also bring the edge from the front to the center to create an elevation. Afterwards, we will continue with adding a cylinder for the plate part, where the flint is located. Again, try to get as close as possible to the proportions and dimensions of the reference image to get the most realistic looking render. After all, select the flint and enable Auto Smooth. You can also enable this feature in Object Data Properties under Normal Settings. Then we will select one edge and move it up a little bit, bevel it with 2 segments and scale it down on the Y-axis. Next we need to make this curved thing. I don't know the name of this part, but we can model it pretty easily. First add a cube, scale it down and add from 5 to 6 horizontal loop cuts. Then in edit mode bevel the corners, but with only 3 to 4 segments, because we will be using subdivision surface together with solidify modifier, so we don't need too much geometry. I also wanted to replicate the geometry offset on the left side as it is on the reference. So select one edge and slightly move it to the center to make it more uneven. Now to do the holes, I will use hardops for this, but if you don't have this add-on, you can watch a YouTube short I made a few days ago, where I am explaining how to do this with the default Blender tools. The link just appeared at the top right here, so go watch it. It's just like a 30-second video and it's quick and easy. So just click the link here, you can also find it in the description under this video. Let's go back to the modeling. So we will start with selecting the vertices where we want to cut the holes. The selection that worked for me was selecting every fourth vert, horizontally and vertically. So there are basically 3 vertices in between. Also make sure you do the selection on both sides. Once you have your selection and you are using hard ops, just click on Q on your keyboard and choose the circle option. With your mouse or touchpad you can adjust the size of the circles, and once you are happy with your scale, just delete the faces. I will also dissolve the unwanted sharp edges on the poles. Now let's create the Flint wheel. Add a cylinder with 64 vertices. Scale it down roughly to the size of the reference. And if you want the additional detail, you can recreate the wheel texture by selecting the quad faces. Go to the face option and select poke faces. Make a small bevel on the corners, and after that select the faces again, inset them and extrude them out a little. I mean, it's not 100% accurate, but it's a great detail. You can use bevel modifier to smooth the sharp corners. Now we need to connect the Flint wheel with this part. So we will delete faces so that the Flint wheel fits inside. Select the edges, extrude them and snap them to the Flint wheel, so they are touching the surface. Then extrude them again to cover the Flint wheel. Now slide and move the vertices to create the elevation from top and also slightly from the bottom. Select the excessive edges and delete them, so there is no geometry inside. After doing that, bevel the vertices with Ctrl-Shift-B on your keyboard. We have a smooth transition now, but we also need to bevel the edges to make the connection points not that sharp. If you have troubles with beveling, it may be because some vertices are overlapping each other. So select all vertices and run merge by distance. This should resolve this issue. Now we need to make this little part on the other side. I think it's called cam or something, whatever. We already have these 2 edges here that we can use. So select them and bevel them with Ctrl-B. Then extrude them upwards and select all the edges besides the corners and bevel them again, so the subdivision is less intense on the outline. The next step is just adding a simple cylinder and placing it into the center. And the last thing is adding this curved metal part. Due to its shape, I'm going to use hard ups again to align a curve around the reference and then just extrude it and subdivide it. So at this point your 3D model is done, and in the next episode, which I'll be releasing soon after I finish the editing, I will show you how to make this realistic looking environment and how to implement good storytelling into your scene. This is all from my side, so thank you for watching, like and subscribe to get notified about the next part, and see you there!